Well, good morning, creatives. My name is Gabe Wardell, and I'll be your opening act today. The headliner, of course, is coming soon. I was saying this is like Weird Al opening for Beyonce, so everybody watch out. I'm a member of the Creative Mornings ATL morning team. I'm excited to be here with you all this morning. Who is here at a Creative Morning event for the very first time? Welcome to all of you. Everybody give these first-timers a big round of applause. And who is here from another city or traveled here to be here and is here doing the Atlanta event for the first time? Is anybody here from out of town? Look at you, welcome. Where are you from? Brooklyn, all right, I've heard of that place. We got Brooklyn in the house, Brooklyn in the house. All right, well, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. It's an absolute delight to be here and to be welcoming you. I do have a few announcements before we get started. First of all, if you're going to post on social media, we ask you to use the hashtag Atlanta_CM, and our global hashtag is #CMPattern. So if you are on the socials, which I hear are the hot things these days, the TikTok, the Instagrams, and all that stuff. And you can also follow us on socials. Our address is @Atlanta_CM. So for those of you who understand what that means something to you. The very first sponsor announcement I'd like to make, we have a really great series of great partnerships. We're going to be watching a video very soon from Adobe. Adobe has been on the forefront of design for a number of years, as we know, and now they are leading the AI revolution. So do not be afraid of the machines. They are your friends. That is what Adobe is telling us. So we're going to watch the video and see if it's true.
Make them look and listen. You know I'ma put the twist in, like a limited edition. You were born to be different. Born to be different. Did it different. You were born to be different. You are born to be different. You know how we do it, so fresh and so clean. Push it to the limit, busting out the seams. I don't care if it's purple, polka dot, or pink. Gonna make them look twice, go and make them blink. They gon' wanna do it too when we doing our thing. Make them look and listen. You know I'ma put the twist in, like a limited edition. You were born to be different. Born to be different. Did it different. You were born to be different. Did it different. You were born to be different. You are born to be different.
All right. Give it up for Adobe, everybody. Thank you. Also, before we 100% jump into this, I did want to take just a moment very briefly to give a shout out to the incredible Amina Brown. Thank you for your leadership and vision, for giving me the opportunity to come up and talk this morning. Your leadership and guidance means so much. And you're also the reason why we're the best chapter of Creative Mornings on the planet. And if anyone disagrees with me, especially Brooklyn up there, I will fight. And there's a reason why I'll fight, and it's because I've been drinking all this hot coffee this morning. Hot Coffee is one of our great partners here in Atlanta. Thank you, Hot Coffee. They are Atlanta's hometown coffee, providing you with our coffee this morning. It is a Black woman-owned business and coffee company. And if you want to support them, you can visit the coffee shop in the Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurship in Castleberry Hill. They're a coffee shop serving premium, single-origin Ethiopian, Central, and South American coffee provisions. You can learn more about that by visiting them at lovehotcoffee.com, because apparently the word hotcoffee.com was not available. You have to love hot coffee to go to their website, and on their socials at Love Hot Coffee. Schedule business meetings there. Go there, spend some money, because they are a great partner and sponsor. And the reason people do this isn't out of the kindness of the heart. They do it because they need your business. So support local businesses, support Hot Coffee. Everybody, yes. All right. Next announcement, next partner. Not all heroes wear capes. Some of them come wrapped up as delicious breakfast sandwiches, and that's why we want to give it up for Hero Donuts and Buns. Thank you, Hero Donuts, for your amazing. And also, we had gluten-free and vegan food from Dolce Vegan. Thank you for providing us with the gluten-free eats. How many people got the gluten-free? Right? Gluten-free in the house. That's always good. As I said earlier, Creative Mornings isn't just happening here in Atlanta. It is happening all over the world, but we are still the best, so do not forget that. There are more than 200 chapters hosting monthly events at the same time as us for creative people just like you and me around the world. So if you're visiting here or you're going to be traveling somewhere else in the future, do check out your Creative Mornings to see if there's a chapter near you. Great event, great organization, and what a great community. So be part of that. Next up, I am humbled and honored to be part of an amazing volunteer team. These folks who make it all possible. Literally, people on our team waking up at 5 a.m., humping it all the way down here, moving things around, doing all that stuff, and they're not getting paid anything except your love and support. So let's give them a big round of applause. It is truly an honor, and I'm so humbled to be part of this team. This month's theme is pattern. She can see standing next to me. Pattern was chosen by our Chennai chapter and was illustrated by Nishant Saldana. The Chennai chapter selection of the theme was inspired by the art form Kulam, which features patterns of dots that are encircled or connected by straight or curved lines. These intricate geometric designs are created on the thresholds of floors of houses, temples, and businesses using rice flour, and the practice is deeply rooted in South Indian culture to welcome guests into the home and bring good fortune and prosperity. So we are really hoping that the patterns today do that. We unlock some knowledge today, we get to share some community, and let's really hope that prosperity comes through. Next up, our shout out to our title sponsor, MPB, for today's headshot activation. How many people got headshots did today? Got the picture did? Got your picture made? Old school Southern style. Had my picture made today. And a big thank you to headshot photographer Wes Stanfield. You can book Wes for your own photography needs by checking his website, wesshots.com, or the Instagram, which is also at wesshots. MPB is the largest global forum to buy, sell, and trade used photo and video gear. They're committed to making gear more accessible and affordable. They recirculate 570,000 cameras and lenses every year, extending the life of creative potential of the visual storytelling. And also, let's face it, that stuff's not going to the landfill, so reusing stuff is probably the single most effective thing you can do if you want to do something environmentally sensitive. So they're a great company, a great cause. Please do look into them. We have, there you go, big, see, somebody here loves the earth. Somebody loves, thank you. Our video partner is Greg Harding Films. Greg Harding has been, where's Greg? Everybody wave hi. There's Greg. Greg behind the camera. Video production company. They partners with small businesses, nonprofits, and brands like yours to create documentary-style content to amplify your mission and message. Let him tell your story. You can slide into his DMs if you want to hit him up on Instagram on Greg Harding Films, and that is amazing. So thank you so much, Greg, for coming on board and helping document what we do here. And now we're going to return to the main theme today, patterns. Patterns are everywhere. As someone who is neurodivergent, I see patterns places a lot of people don't. They're a reflection, quite honestly, of how my own brain works, and sometimes it can be overwhelming. Who does the Strands puzzle every day on the New York Times? Anybody? Strands? The other week, I was doing the Strands puzzle after I'd agreed to do this every morning, first thing I do, but I'm not OCD. The spanogram, do you remember this? Last week was patterns. Literally, patterns was the word. And guess what one of the words in the patterns thing was? Quilts. Yeah, right? Weird things like that happen. That same day, I got an email from the High Museum called Patterns in Abstraction, Black Quilts from the High's collection. And I thought, the world is telling me something. Patterns are everywhere. Patterns can help us find comfort in the world. They can help us make sense of the world we live in. And they make it possible for us to wrap ourselves up in the warm comfort of a handcrafted quilt. Quilters, like my fellow Creative Mornings Atlanta team member, Jon Goode, make quilting possible. Megan is a quilter and creativity coach who resides right here in nearby Westview. In addition to volunteering with the Creative Mornings and After Hours teams, she also MCs events and sometimes even hosts episodes of the Wake Up and Create podcast, which if you all are not listening to it, you should be. As the project manager at Ruby Star Society, an Atlanta-based modern fabric design studio, Megan brings more than 18 years of experience and is at the forefront of what's new in the modern quilting world. Let's give a big Creative Mornings Atlanta welcome to Jon Goode.
Thank you so much. All right, let's see if I can hit the right volume holding mic level here. Hi everyone, good morning. I'm Jon Goode, and as is mentioned, I'm here to talk about fabulous quilts. And I would love to get a little feel from the audience before I jump in. By show of hands, who has a relative that's a quilter? Okay. Who here has taken it a step further and themselves actually made a quilt at one point or another? A couple of us. Yay, my people are here. Well, awesome. I'm going to talk a little bit before I go into slides today about sort of the overarching quilt world to give you a little bit of perspective. And the first thing I want to say is that the quilting industry is alive and well. So there are actually new quilters joining the quilt industry all the time. It is not necessarily a dying art, which oftentimes people think it is. It's not. The pandemic was especially helpful in getting people dragging their sewing machines out of the attic or asking their mom or aunt to finally give it to them because they've been offered it a handful of times and picked up quilting and realized how therapeutic and almost calming it can be, which is a big reason why I myself do it. So about 20 years ago, to give you a little perspective, there was a huge shift in the quilting world and modern quilting took root. That means a couple of things, and I'll talk about it today on each of my layers of patterns for quilting. But one of the biggest things really was the fabric itself. Just like we have favorite artists for music, we have directors we like for movies, we have actual artists we enjoy. What had happened at that time was that a lot of artists and graphic designers were starting to work with the modern quilting fabric or the quilting fabric industries to create modern fabrics for quilts. So we hadn't seen that yet. And so it really brought a lot of energy and zest to the quilting industry that it hadn't seen yet. So I'll talk a little bit about that today and what it means. But a huge shift happened about 20 years ago, which is not coincidentally when I myself started quilting. It was when the first time I got to see the stuff I saw my mom working on my entire childhood and young adult life. Finally, I was seeing fabrics that I actually wanted to touch and cut and play with myself. And that was a lot of other people that had the same sort of feel. So just like a quilt is 3 layers deep, there's a top, a middle, and a back. I have 3 sort of areas where pattern comes into play when it comes to quilts, starting with the actual quilt pattern itself. So if you got a chance to see any of the quilts that I had out here, every single quilt I brought today is a different pattern. So I put up here to show you what it could look like if you take one quilt pattern and you just adjust what fabrics you're using. But all of these, the pattern when I'm talking about the quilt pattern is the actual design of the blocks themselves. So everything I had that I brought today was different. That's the first layer of pattern. Now, when it comes to traditional and modern, this one I have right here is actually a predominantly traditional quilt using quilt blocks that date way back. What would make it modern would be the fabrics that I chose. Same with some of the ones out in the lobby, very traditional, and then some that are super modern. You can tell because you might see some and they look kind of familiar, like you've seen them somewhere in your life. And then others you go, I've never seen something that looks quite like that. So that's kind of your tell there. In the quilting industry, there's a whole group of people that just focus on designing quilt patterns. So when it comes to Adobe and their AI, that's probably the biggest part of this industry that might be hit, is new quilt patterns being designed through AI. What we really want AI to do, though, is the quilt math, which is the hardest part. So if they could kick that up, that'd be great. We would appreciate it. So if you go to the next slide, the next layer and where I kind of work right now in my realm is the fabric itself. So all these fabrics that I have up here are by Ruby Star Society. You may or may not have realized that one of the most popular modern quilting fabric companies that exist right now in the modern quilting world is actually based here in Atlanta, which is really cool. So that's Ruby Star Society. We're over, thank you. Yeah, we're excited about it. So the group is actually a group of 5 female designers. They've been working together for over 10 years. Ruby Star itself has been created as of 2018, but they were someone that had come in with a previous business and made a huge shift and kind of pushed even further the quilting fabric world. This really connects when I was talking about how we have favorite musicians or favorite directors. What's different in the modern quilting world that didn't exist before was people following fabric designers and them having a fan base. That didn't really exist before. You would be drawn to like, that's a pretty fabric, or I like those colors. Now people get on board with who is designing the fabric and loving what they're making and then following all the work that they do. So that's where the modern sort of traditional has changed a little bit. Another way, and I don't have it represented up here, that modern and traditional can vary is that a lot of what are considered modern quilts would use solid fabrics. And then there's a whole realm of modern quilts that use printed fabrics. I myself would consider myself a modern traditionalist quilter, which is a lot of my quilts, I use traditional inspired patterns, but then I use modern, bright, funky fabrics. So if you look up here with some of the prints we have, you can see there's wild things like cute little pit bully breed dogs, which is so cute, fun game board sort of prints that seem very young and funky, as well as some sunshines. And then you may notice the star print is also the stars that I'm wearing on my dress. In the modern quilting world, that print is a big deal. So for any of you that have family members that quilt, let them know that you know what starry is, and they may or may not look at you with a blank stare, but it's worth a shot. You saw starry today. So the fabric design itself also lends into this idea of pattern. What is the pattern of the print? What's the repeat? How big is the pattern or the print? How small is it? And how do they play together? And then lastly, on the last slide, sort of the third layer, I feel like as a quilter, this is usually where, if we're out having cocktails, this is where most of the questions come into play. So this is where you'll be able to really go drop knowledge at your 4th of July family cookout. So quilting is the actual method of stitching the 3 layers together. So again, the top, the middle, it's called batting. It's like the inside of a sandwich. And then the back of your quilt. When those are stitched together with thread, that's actually what makes it a quilt. It's what different, it's kind of like not all bourbons are a whiskey or not all whiskeys are a bourbon. There's that sort of thing with quilts. Not all blankets are a quilt. Quilts are kind of blankets, but if it's stitched like this, it's a quilt, not a blanket. So also, I'm just giving you guys all the hot tips so your family members love you. I really just want you all to get gifted a quilt for Christmas. And so it starts with the right terminology, right? So what we're looking at here is actually there's a long arm quilt machine, so not a domestic machine that you're probably used to seeing. It would take up the bigger than this carpet of space, and they actually quilt quilts in this manner. So there are a whole sort of, there's a whole group of people in this industry that specialize in just this part of it. And obviously, as you're looking at the things behind me, there's so many pattern options, right? So not only now am I selecting what my quilt is going to look like for the design of it, what the pattern of the quilt is, what fabric I'm going to use, and what pattern is on that fabric. But I could also take it to the next step and ask myself, what pattern do I want layered on top of all of that? Now, where modern and traditional could vary a little bit is this is not necessarily the way that everyone quilts their quilts. A lot of historic quilts obviously were quilted by hand. They were pieced by hand too, which most people don't do these days unless you really are looking for a reason to slow down. Highly recommended if you're feeling stressed out. But the long arming is something that really, for modern quilts, will hold them together, will make them last in their lives, sort of continue on a lot longer than a lot of historic quilts did. When I talk of modern traditionalism, a lot of modern quilters, I'm using air quotes a lot because it's a definition that's disputed. So go down that rabbit hole if you want. Like, what's modern quilting? And look at the drama from 20 years ago. So a lot of people these days will hand stitch, but the hand stitches, instead of back when maybe our grandmothers or great-grandmothers were doing it, they were trying to get as many stitches per inch as possible that were uniform, and that's what made that good. Now, with modern quilting, what they're preferring is actually big, longer stitches that look more graphic and stand out a lot more. So some people choose to go that method, some people choose to go this method. With this one, someone else is typically doing it. So I will take this, I'll prep the back, I'm gonna send it off to somebody somewhere else, and then they do this last stage. I like to think of it as there's multiple layers of collaboration happening with each quilt, which I really enjoy. Also, I like this part, I don't like that part. So let someone else do that loves it, right? Okay, that's kind of the overview of quilting and pattern. Hopefully I didn't talk too long. I'll still be here after if you have any questions or want to nerd out any on quilts out in the lobby. I'd love to chat more. But thank you guys so much for having me. And I hope this has kind of tickled your brains a little bit when it comes to pattern and how to talk to your family about quilting. All right? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Yes, give it up one more time for Megan Goode. Oh, hey. So my name is Amina Brown. I am the chapter host of Creative Mornings Atlanta. So welcome. Good morning. Yes. Hope you got your coffee and did all that. I have 1,000 thank yous. Thank you to Megan. She's amazing. Please make sure you take a look at any of these quilts. Thank you to Elbot and Mark for having muscles this morning. Love to see it. Thank you to our photographer, Tiffany Van Meter, in the building taking shots here. So any of the shots you see, hey Tiffany, any of the shots you see of this event are from Tiffany Van Meter. And you too can work with Tiffany for a fee. Okay. Also, wildly, the High Museum is about to debut Patterns in Abstraction black quilts from the High Museum. So if you want to even get further into quilting, go to there. My husband and I actually went to the preview, and it is really, really wonderful. Also, hi, High Museum. We would love to partner with you on our themes. So if anyone has connections, we want them real bad. Thank you so much. Okay, if this is your first time here, you might be like, wow, this seems great, but what is this? And where am I at right now? So Creative Mornings Atlanta does 10 free events for the creative community a year. We do 5 morning events like this, and then we do 5 evening events called Creative After Hours. The difference between this and that is that our evening events, you get to be creative. You get to do creative things, right? So this July, I got some things I can't tell you yet. But the part I can tell you is those of you who are at our April event, Jake Rothschild, who is the founder of Jake's Ice Cream, okay, because I really was looking for you. I want you right here? Yeah, I want you to see me afterwards because you done started a thing. So we about to talk about it right now. Okay, so my friend right here was at our event in April. Jake, the founder of Jake's Ice Cream, was our speaker. And he talked about how he loves to do community collaborations with ice cream flavors. And you asked him, why doesn't Creative Mornings have a flavor with Jake's Ice Cream? You remember asking that? And Jake was like, I don't know, but let's do that. So we put out to y'all in the community to choose flavors. We got to our top 3 flavors, and I went to Jake's and said, here's the top 3 flavors. He said, I don't want to just make one, I want to make all 3. Right? So in July, we is having an ice cream party. So you really need to come because you need to put it on your calendar, but please see me afterwards because I might have something special I can invite you to. Hi. Anyways, but the rest of y'all can come to the ice cream party, okay? It's gonna be Thursday, the last Thursday of July. Let me make sure I'm not lying. July 25th, okay? Mark your calendars. We will be at Atlanta Contemporary. There might be mocktails. Y'all just don't know. We just doing all sorts of stuff. It's summer, okay? So be there. Get your tickets because there won't be enough room for everybody. Love y'all. Okay. Next, did y'all know we had a podcast? Creative Mornings Atlanta has a podcast in partnership with WABE. And who doesn't love WABE? Okay, everybody loves WABE. Yes. Our podcast is called Wake Up and Create. You will hear some clips of previous talks that you have heard here. You will hear folks like me, like Mark Kendall, like Megan Goode that you just heard from, actually in conversation about creative process based on some of the things that our speakers have shared. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree. But if you're looking to get some creative inspiration, Wake Up and Create is it. Make sure you go to your podcast app and subscribe. Do it now. Do it now. Also, shout out to Plywood Place as our venue partner. Yes, yes. We appreciate Plywood so much, and you too can appreciate Plywood. Let me tell you how. You could co-work here for a fee. You could host an event here for a fee. But let me tell you what Plywood said. They said if you want to host an event here, you want to do an event space rental, they will give you 15% off if you use the code Creative Mornings. Don't you love a discount? Listen, you could have your birthday party here. You could bring them people you work with, the ones you like. You could bring them here. You know, do that. Support Plywood Place. Also, any podcasters in the building, any people who are involved in podcast, audio world, a few of us. Okay, some of y'all are, but y'all don't want to tell about it, so that's fine. All right, so y'all also need to know that the Podcast Creator Summit is being hosted here at Plywood. Actually, the last day is this afternoon. So if you are like, man, I've been thinking about a podcast, I want to see about it, this is a place where you want to be. So make sure that you follow PRX. I'm going to tell you right now. You want to follow them. See, the note was supposed to be right there. Oh, I found it. You want to follow them at PRX Official on Instagram. You will have all the information there in case you want to just catch the last little bit of this event. You want to make sure you learn all your things so you can tell your stories and hopefully not give bad dating advice like most podcasts do. Anyways, okay, are y'all ready for our speaker? Like, let me tell y'all something. Before I bring our speaker up. Let me tell y'all something. Every person you see speaking here, we can't pay them. That's a rule across Creative Mornings Global. So anyone you see here speaking agreed to do this pro bono. And a lot of these people are people that get paid good money to speak places, okay? So when they say, I'll come here and share things with you for free, we appreciate it. But let me tell you, the speaker that we have today, this is not our first time trying to get him here. So I was very excited and honored that he said yes. So let me tell you, for those of y'all that's new here, listen, Emmy-nominated writer, poet featured in CNN's Black in America, HBO's Def Poetry Jam, BET's Lyric Cafe, and TV One's Verses and Flow, 2022 Gold American Advertising Award for Branded Content and Entertainment Non-Broadcast, author of 2 books, fellow of Air Serenbe, current host of The Moth Atlanta. I want y'all to welcome our speaker, Jon Goode. We don't have enough time. I'm just, okay. Turn this on and make sure, okay, make sure they can hear. We in there. We don't have enough time. So I have to jump in real quick. Okay, so let me give y'all a little Atlanta cultural context, especially for those of y'all that are new to the city, okay? So Jon and I have known each other, I don't know if I should say the number of years, because then it's gonna sound like people need to question our age, and I don't wanna get into that. But maybe it was the 90s, maybe it was the early 2000s. So look, I don't have time, okay?
It was around the time that Cash Money was taking over.
Yes, it was, okay? So my original entry into Atlanta's creative scene was through the poetry scene. And you are looking at one of the pillars of what became Atlanta's poetry scene. It's him. It's him. So this is during the era, for my old heads in the building, this is when it was Yin Yang Cafe, before it became Apache Cafe. This is when Java Monkey had not burned down. Oh my God, it's hard. It's hard to talk about it. This is when Jessica Care Moore had a spot here called More Epics back in the day for my OG people here. So I always like to start, Jon,
Yes.
with what is your Atlanta origin story? What brought you to the city? Give us the vibes. What was the era of Atlanta then?
Yes, so I moved to Atlanta in 1998. And there's a story. I'm gonna tell you a story. Can I tell you a story real quick? So cool, I'm gonna tell you a story. So I used to think of home as the city I grew up in, Richmond, Virginia. That's your home? Fantastic, I'm glad you made it out. Listen. Yes, cost of living going up, chances of living going down. So I thought of Richmond as home. And then there came a time when I started to think of my specific address on Gordon Avenue in the south side of Richmond as home. And then I realized as a kid that home for me was my mother. Wherever my mother was, I felt at home. And then I went through elementary school, junior high, high school, went to college, and I created this community of people and friends, and that felt like home, and it felt important because it felt like a home I'd built for the first time for myself. Then I met a girl. I fell in love. She became home. Oh, my God, did she become home. So when she graduated, she was like, I'm moving to Atlanta, and I felt like I had to move to Atlanta if I didn't want to be homeless. So I was trying to get a job in Atlanta, and she said, it's easier to get a job in Atlanta if you live in Atlanta, and I have secured a place for us to live in Atlanta. I said, this is fantastic. So I packed my car. I drove to Atlanta to her parents' house. I met her parents. We had dinner. You know, there was chicken. There was wine. El Vino did flow. Great conversation. The night ended. I shook their hands so that she and I could go to wherever it was we lived. And she informed me that wherever it was we lived was with her parents. And I didn't want to live with my own parents, let alone hers. But part of this was my fault because I didn't ask clarifying questions. So when she said I have a place for us to live, I didn't say, is it with your parents? I didn't do that. So I take the blame for some of this. So I think she could see that I was dismayed in some ways. So she pulled me to the side and she said, so look, Daddy said I can't leave the house until I take a husband. And you know, people feel this way. And I just had dinner with this man. It just didn't seem like something he would say. So I said, your daddy said that? And she said, no. The bishop at the church said that. We call him Daddy. And then the octave that was a little bit higher than I intended, I said, you call the preacher at the church Daddy? And she said, first off, he's a bishop. And secondly, wait till you meet him, you're going to love him. I met him, I didn't love him. To say I met him was too strong. I saw him. He was always surrounded by this like phalanx of security. No one got to meet him. He was a black man of average height. He wore a muscle shirt and a herringbone necklace. He had a texturizer or a jerry curl, whatever it was not of God. He wore these leather trousers. I'm sure there was a cow somewhere mooing in heaven. I didn't die for this. And I looked at her and I said, this is your daddy? She said, he's an amazing preacher. Wait till you hear him. You're going to love him. I heard him. I did not love him. He preached a sermon one Sunday where he told everyone that on the following Sunday they should come to church and leave all their tithes and offerings on the steps that led up to the pulpit. So the next Sunday they did this. So he came out, he looked at the steps, and then he explained to them there was not enough money on the steps to justify him preaching his sermon. And he was going to direct the choir while they put more money down. And they did. They got up, put more money. He explained to them still not enough, more money. And then he preached the sermon that I did not love. I did not love it. And while all of this was going on Sunday after Sunday, I'd gotten a job as an accountant. I'd been promoted twice because I was always at work. And I was always at work because her parents were delightful people, but their house didn't feel like home. And this relationship didn't anymore either. So one Sunday, she comes home from church, and she tells me that the bishop, has told her two things. The first thing is that she needs to marry Jesus, literally marry Jesus. There's going to be a ceremony. There's going to be a ring. I asked her, did Jesus know? Is he attending? Does he know he's in an arranged marriage? The second thing was that she said that the bishop had told her she would not be led to be with a man that was not going to be a part of this church. So I told her a few things myself. The first thing I told her was congratulations on her upcoming nuptials. I'm sure Jesus would be an amazing listener, and at the reception, there would be wine because Jesus. The second thing I told her was that she was in a bit of a cult. And I had a new job. I didn't have time for a cult right then. I was busy. And the last thing I told her was, indeed, I was not going to be a part of this church. That was not happening for me. I was leather trousered and jerry curled out. So a few weeks later, she married Jesus. And on their honeymoon night, I moved out because that felt appropriate. I didn't want to be, a fly in the anointed ointment. So I moved into a one-bedroom apartment off Candler Road in Decatur. I had a chest, I had a TV, I had a sleeping bag, and I had a lawn chair. That's all I had. But it felt like home. And I realized in that moment that home was not my city and my neighborhood, not my mom, not my relationship. That home for me was me. And it felt good to finally be at home. Cool. Thank y'all for listening to that story.
Yes. Yes. I love it. I love it. So we're talking about pattern.
Patterns, I wore patterns because of the theme. I
love
leaned into it. I leaned into
love
it.
consistency. So when we think about patterns, especially in your life, also your career, because patterns play a big role in writing, in storytelling, in stage performance. So how would you say patterns have played a role in what you look at now as your story up to now?
Yeah, I mean, one of the patterns that I had at the beginning and I have all the way up till now is that you have to know what works for you, what the pattern is that works for you. For me, I have to get up crazy early in the morning, like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. I have to exercise, shower, and then I have to go somewhere and I have to start writing. My best thoughts, my most creative ideas are first thing in the morning. That's how it works for me. So that's something I've done that I do till this day. That's one of the patterns for me to create. And that puts me in a space where creating is like a habit. And I'm not reliant upon feeling inspired to create, that it's just something I do every day, whether I want to or not. And some days, what I write, it's not good. It's not good. But there might be a good line in there that turns into something else. But, I'd be saying like this, this is 5 pages of not good. But that one line, that becomes something. And in performance, I get to every venue about 30 minutes before it starts. And I walk out on the stage, and I look at the empty room, and I see the night going well. I visualize this thing is going to pack, and it's going to go incredibly well. I do it at every venue, so much so that with the Moth, when I travel with them, when I show up on time, they think I'm late because I'm always early. And so I see it, and according to one of the producers, I always say aloud in the room, tonight is going to be a nice night for an evening. And he's like, that's become one of his patterns. He was like, as soon as you say that, I know the night's going to go well. So, you just have to create the patterns of success that you need, to be successful in whatever it is you do. You got to figure out what that means for you. My friend Amir Suleiman, he writes late at night. That's his pattern. You just have to figure out what it is for your specific thing.
Okay, let me ask you this follow-up question about patterns too, because I think a part of what can happen to us as creatives is we sort of get in the zone that maybe like we arrived there as an artist, right? And it is possible to get stuck there.
It is.
Right? To get in the pattern of maybe what most people know you do, or what you've been doing, these past blah, 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 whatever amount of years, whatever season. And in your career, you sort of seen maybe like where you entered artistically sort of take you into these other rooms. What do you have to say about not getting stuck in a pattern as a creative, like being open to whatever your talent or your gift or your skill actually taking you into some different spaces?
Yeah, I think so for me, I started off in poetry, spoken word poetry. And I was very fortunate, the good people at Nick at Night, they reached out and asked me to write these poems for a Black History Month campaign they had because, everyone wants a Negro poet for February. So I wrote the poems, and when it was over with, the young lady who was producing the spots, Diva Newman, she said, "So what do you do, John?" And I said, "I write." She was like, what do you write? I said, "I can write anything." She said, "Oh, I thought you were just a poet." I said, "No, I can write anything." She said, "Can you write a TV commercial? Have you ever written a TV commercial?" I said, "Absolutely." Now, this was not true. This was untrue. This was untrue. But I tell anyone, I would rather take the shot and miss than not take the shot. So I said, absolutely, I can and have written TV commercials. And then I went on this incredible thing called Google, and I Googled, how do you write a TV commercial? So I looked at that, I wrote the commercials. The formatting wasn't right, but they fixed the formatting. And we did the commercials, and those 2 of those commercials got nominated for an Emmy. But it comes down to taking the shot and doing the thing. Thank you. And not painting yourself like too narrowly into a thing, but also not getting too caught up in your past successes. There was a show 7 years ago called Deaf Poetry. Any of y'all ever see this show? 5, 6, 8 of you. That's why it's canceled today. So when it was on TV, it was this amazing show. But this was very, very long ago. And I know people who today, when they talk to you, all they will talk to you about is deaf poetry. And I'm like, you have to get away from that. You have to move to the next thing. You can't get caught in your past successes too long. You gotta look forward. So I tell everyone, man, keep your eyes ahead. Like, even just now when you were doing the thing, like you were announcing the things, I was like, yeah, I guess I did that, sure. But wait, in my head, I'm like, but wait till you see the next thing. Wait till you see what comes next.
Okay, talk to us about the pattern of writing in different media, okay? So, and I just want to give y'all a little side note. Those of y'all that are familiar with slam poetry, this is someone that if you were signed up to do a slam and he walked in and said he was gonna sign his name up, that there was fear in the hearts of everyone. When you watch Game of Thrones, fear in the hearts of everyone. Factual. These are facts.
Let me tell you why.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. I used to go to the slam and watch everybody. And I would study the pattern of how they did their poems. And I would go home and strategize. So when I came back and they were like, I signed up, I'm like, you're going to lose. Because I know what you're going to do. And I'm going to beat that. So one night at a slam, this guy, he was like, I think I'm going to win. I said, impossible. I said, you're going to come in second or third. I said, this is the first poem you're going to do, and you're going to score very high. Then after that, you have to do this poem, and after that, you have to do this poem. And by the time you get to your third poem, I will have outscored you. And so when we got to the end, and that was true, he said, how did you know? I said, it's because it's what you do every time. It's the pattern of what you do. And I can beat that pattern.
And did. And here's the thing, for those of you that are familiar with the Moth Atlanta, and just not even just the Moth Atlanta, but the Moth generally, which is a storytelling, I want to say competition, but it doesn't feel like that to me. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, the Moth has the podcast, they have the radio hour, they have the main stage shows, and then they have the competition show, the Story Slam. So they have a bunch of different iterations of the Moth that you can visit with. We have some Moth champions in the room. Scotty Crow's won, Amina's won. She might not tell you, but Amina's the current host of the Moth Atlanta.
I see how I invited you here and you're making announcements. I see that, okay? So for those of us that came from sort of a poetry slam background, when a lot of old poetry heads were starting to go over to the Moth because we wanted that challenge of like, how can I also sharpen my storytelling skills? And I went to the Moth and was like, wow, look at these people being nice. Poetry slam is not nice. It is not nice. You're there with your friends, but it is vicious. You are literally watching them to see how you can beat them in a few minutes. People were at the Moth like, good on you.
They were.
Good job.
They are.
It's amazing. So talk to us about, when we think about spoken word poetry, performance poetry, then we're seeing in your career how that turns into being able to write for what people hear and what people see. But then you also flip that back into being an author, which is then now having to take words that you would normally say, record, perform, and make them live in a book in a way that people reading it without you can engage in it. What was it like sort of flipping the pattern in a way? Or was the pattern the same in how you write books?
It's everything is everything's informative of the next thing. So when we do spoken word poetry, what we're doing is we're standing on stage and we're trying to write a thing that it evokes an emotion in you in the moment. It makes you laugh, it makes you cry, it makes you think. Whatever we're trying to make it do to you, that's what it is. And that taught me, I actually think it gives you an advantage when you're writing TV commercials or anything, because you're used to putting work in front of people and making it generate an emotion in people. You know how to do that in your writing no matter what. So when I'm in these writing rooms writing commercials with incredible people who have incredible degrees in advertising, but they've never had to do it in front of a live audience, they don't know what actually moves people. They just know what they were taught in class. So when we get in that room and I write and they write and we present it, mine's does very well because I'm like, I have an advantage over you because I stand in front of live audiences. So that helps with commercials, that helps with books, that helps with like every aspect of writing starts with those open mics and the poetry readings and being able to stand on those stages and really generate these emotions and this content for those rooms.
Last question, then I want to open it up to the crowd, so be thinking about your questions too. You have now been in Atlanta over 25 years. So you've seen a lot come and go. We've seen a lot of our venues come and go. You've seen artists come here and leave here. You've seen trends come and go. You've seen a lot of things change. What do you hope for Atlanta's arts scene, Atlanta's creative scene? What do you hope for the future of that in this city?
Wow, okay, that's a big question. What I love about Atlanta when I first moved here is that when you went to the open mic, when you went to anywhere, everything was different. Everyone had their own individual voice. No two things sounded alike, and that's what made it incredible. And over time, you find in certain spaces, especially in the poetry space, people will find something that's popular and it does well, and then they'll start kind of imitating this thing because they're like, oh, this is what does well, so let me do that thing. And they don't take the time to figure out who they really are and what they really want to say and what their authentic voice is. So the thing that I hope for Atlanta is that artists continue to find their authentic voice. They continue to push the boundaries and push it into spaces like unexpected spaces. I think that's what created what became, that whole Dungeon Family movement in Atlanta. Like, that was so different than what was happening in hip hop at the time. And, as we all know, Atlanta influences everything. So I hope the influence of Atlanta continues to inspire people, even in Atlanta, to find new ways of expressing themselves and find their authentic voice and take that chance. Because, as I said to someone earlier, a lot of this is you have to jump off the cliff and build your wings on the way down. That's how this whole thing works. So I hope people continue to take the leap.
Yeah. Love it. All right, I got one question here.
Oh, one question.
We got a mic coming to you.
So, going off of what you just said,
Yeah.
somebody who loves to write
Yes.
and is afraid of the stage,
Yes.
but wants to embrace that new space, like you say, jump off that cliff, how? Where do I go?
So if you wanted to, let's say, tell a story, right? I would suggest The Moth, right? I suggest you go and just watch once. And then you start to, see how, this is how this moves. And then you'll write something and you'll put it on the stage. And it's a very loving and open community. And so many people, a guy named Al Wiseman, Al came for the first time maybe a year and a half ago. And he won the Story Slam maybe 3 or 4 months ago. But he talks about the journey of coming in that room and listening and writing and listening and writing. And eventually, getting to the point where he could win that competition. But it's a lot of that. Like, here in the world, a lot of people, they want to be successful right now, right? They don't want the journey that takes to success. They just see the successful people and they want that. But there's a road you have to walk to get there, and there's no shortcut. There's no way around it. It's the 10,000 hours you need to master a thing. So you have to walk in that room not knowing, sit there and listen and write and hone and write and figure it out. And you're going to be scared. The first time I went to a poetry reading, I pulled my hat all the way down to my face so that I couldn't see the audience. And my mind convinced me there was no audience, that I was just talking, And when people would laugh, it was kind of jarring because I thought there was no one there. So it's like you have to do what you have to do to get out there on the stage. It's not like without fear. You have to do it through the fear.
Yeah, what you got?
So I'm gonna pretend nobody's here. When coming up with creative or personal patterns, how do you delineate signal from noise?
That's a good question. So for me, I usually have, especially a lot of times I have a clear idea. I have this idea of what I want to do. Like I'm like, oh, I have this idea. Even with like when I started this novel I wrote called Midas, I was like, oh, I have this idea. And I started writing it. And I wrote down first the clear idea of what this thing is. And so when I started writing it, stuff would show up that wasn't that, like stuff that just gets in there. And I would have to sit there and read through it and be like, oh, this is dope, but this doesn't belong in here. Like, you have to, for me at least, you have to know what it is you're trying to do, and you have to be honest with yourself. Like, oh, this is dope, this is amazing, but this doesn't go in this thing. And it's hard to get rid of this dope, amazing thing that you're like, wait till they read it, they'll go crazy. But it makes no sense in the context of this thing I've written. Right, you know. So it's a bit of being honest with yourself about what you're writing, what your intent is of what you're writing, and you have to keep what's on purpose and then you don't jettison it, you just pull it away. Because eventually you'll write something else, you'll be like, oh, this thing goes in this thing. I just wrote it early. I wrote it a little too early, but this belongs here.
Yeah, that's great.
Hey everyone, Jordan. I actually am originally from Atlanta, so that's cool.
All right.
Fantastic.
My question is, where do you draw inspiration from, and does that change? Like, is it a constant change, or is it pretty standard?
So I tell anyone, to me, inspiration is just always on the other side of your door. Like, I get out of the house every day, and I run into peoples and circumstances that inform what I'm going to write. On the other side of your door, there's a poem, there's a song, there's a short story, and it's living there. Whether you write it or not, it's there. It's up to you to walk into the circumstances, to see it, and to write it out. So I'm working on a new book, and this new book involves a lot of playing chess in a park, which is something that I do. And if you sit there long enough, you start to hear the stories of the people in the park. They explain to you how they ended up in the park. And you could just hear it and not think anything of it. Or you could hear it and be like, wow, there's something here. There's something beautiful and poignant and, something that can really resonate with audiences. So I think inspiration it's every day. It's just right there. It's just, you just have to kind of look for it a little bit and decide if you want to do something with it.
Last question. What you got?
Hey, big fan. As you've been sharing about the different mediums that you write in, poetry, commercials, even storytelling, it strikes me that there are these established formats for a lot of those different creative mediums, and sometimes those formats can feel like you're writing to a pattern. I'm curious, as you take on, a new piece, how much of that existing pattern is helpful for you, and how much do you deviate from that and use it as a creative exercise?
Yeah, I've been very, very fortunate in that almost everything I've begun writing in, I have no idea how you do it. I just know that I'm good at telling stories. And anyone can format the thing. The thing that they need is the ideas. There's a bunch of people that can format it, they don't have the ideas. So I come with the ideas, then we figure out how to format the thing into whatever they need it to be. And often when you come with these new ideas, I found with Nick at Night, they created a different format to fit the idea because they're like, oh, we love this idea. It doesn't exactly fit in this format, so we'll just change the format. So I think the first thing is just to come up with incredible ideas. And from there, they will either fit it into the format or they will blow the format up and build something new.
Yeah. Y'all give it up for Jon Goode.
Thank y'all.
Oh my goodness.
I know,
Thank you
right?
so much.
So kind.
I know we didn't get all your questions, but Jon is going to stick around for a few minutes if you want to come up here. And 2 announcements for y'all. 1, July 25th, we eating ice cream. So make sure you pay attention to get your tickets to that. And John A. Lyon, I am going to be hosting the mall. The theme is Temptation for July. So we hope we'll see y'all there too.
Yeah.
Y'all have a great week. See y'all soon.